Welcome to the Adeptus of the Brush. Now, in post-production, this is what the final model is going to look like. I'll put this up at the start of each of the parts so you can see it. And if people would like to see a condensed time-lapse of the whole painting process reduced down without the waffling, I'm more than happy to put one up if people leave a comment and tell me that's what they want to see. So, unfortunately, there are quite a few parts to this video. It's quite a long process, so this is one of the parts, and you'll see this at the beginning of the following parts as well until the final reveal. If you like what you've seen, please leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment. So, I've got an empty jam jar. And I have a whole load of pigment powders that I've made up myself. There's a tutorial on the channel showing you how I've made them, and I'm going to dump some enamel thinners into my empty jam jar. Probably a little bit too much, actually. That's more like it. Can always keep this stuff for later. Careful with the stuff, it will remove paint from other surfaces. I don't find a problem with it attacking plastic models. Don't know. Some people don't like using it. I'll take an old big brush, and I'm going to dump most of this ground up powder into enamel thinners, mix it around, and yeah, we got a nice mess. In fact, I'm actually going to thin that out some more because that is quite concentrated. I probably did have enough enamel thinners in there. Probably use this for another batch of models at a later date. That should hopefully thin that out a little bit better. I should stress this stuff is flammable. Using a well ventilated space. I've currently got the windows open and stuff for using this, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attack this drill part, and at the moment all I'm going to do is slather this on all the metallics that I've done so far. And this time I'm not worried about if this gets on the brown parts that I've already pre-painted. You'll see what's happening in a sec. There will be runs and stuff at the moment. That's going to happen. Again, I'm not worried about that. I will move these bits out of the way because I don't want any splashes really, if I can help it. And I'll probably want to dab some thicker stuff onto this at a later date. At this point I'm going to start getting out my fingers, which is unfortunate. So I'm going to leave that to one side just for the moment. I'm going to do the same for our track bed. I think I'm going to hold it up here. It's the best place. And literally, I just want to slather this over the bits that we've already painted. Doesn't matter what the colour is, it's getting this over it. Turn it around, other side. I find doing this adds more depth to the model. So sometimes I'll use these enamel washes just because I think they give a different effect that you don't get otherwise. This is going to help shade some of these elements on the track that we've been having issues with. Alright, finally up onto the top sections of this. So do the inside first. Before I come around at the back. So now the uprights. I think this gives a much more organic look than what we would have otherwise got. Now we're going to need to be careful with those. I will use the smaller brush I've got for doing the elements for the tracks, I think. And again, we're going to smash this over this inside face. Just too dark now. I think we need some more thinners. Yeah, we've gone too dark. We're in danger of erasing what we've done. So it needs to be thinned. We're picking up too much pigment. So what we'll do is use the brush to try and move some of this around a little bit. What we're trying to do is avoid getting it onto the red. Right. A little bit on the wheels, but we don't want to get it too far. Don't mind on the underside, so we're going to grunge that down. But I could have done with being able to wash some of that off the cogs. But never mind, we've gone a little bit too dark with the stain in there. We come back and correct that. I'll try not to do the same on this side. So yeah, we've not got anything like it's heavy, so let's try and darken that up a little bit first. Yeah, that worked better. It's looking more like the other side now. Don't mind it leaking up the underside. We've just got these uprights to try and avoid getting it on the red. And that darkens that down nicely. They've just got that top panel. One of the reasons I like this, it gives quite a nice oily sheen that is very difficult to reproduce any other way. Right, let's try and touch the end of this very carefully. We're into the last bit. What I'm going to do is slab some of this onto the brown sections and then come back in with some other colours. You'll understand why in just a sec. This is effectively putting a base down for our next batch. This is stuff that I've had pre-mixed for a while. This is a red ochre mix. So I'm going to come back in a few places, over most of the brown sections, and just drizzle this in, and if it runs elsewhere it don't matter, it just adds to the look. And I'm going to leave that like that, try and suck some of this off. Don't need it everywhere. It's dribbling round. So I'm going to put my lids back on these, go and dry them, and once they're dry we'll come back for the next bit. So as I say, I'm going to clear this up, lids back on jars, seal them up, pop the surface down, and go and get these dried. So I shall be back shortly. So the enamel thinners that we've used has dried enough that we can move on. It's tacky in a couple of places, but it's more or less good enough for what we need. Still need to go and find that cog. So first things first, what I'm going to do is just come back at some of these brass parts with a little bit of skull crusher brass. Don't need too much, I'm just going to move some brushes out of the way. Where have I put you? You were on this side earlier, there you are. Skull crusher brass. I'm only using this on the body of the tank. So, just on the cog that we were doing earlier. Got a bit of texture there now, so this goes on a little easier. I'll come back and do that side in a minute. This one's a little bit darker, so we need a little bit more to reinforce this. But I do like the texture that the enamel thinners pigments give. It looks genuinely like dirt. Track this all to one side. So just this piece. Just re-establish some of the top colour. On that side, same on this side. Just looks like engine dirt. bits, see if it will take and do what I want. It's just a slightly lighter colour than I think what we used earlier. Don't think we used this as the base colour. No, it's lighter. Just reinforcing what we've already got down. I'm happy with that for the brass elements on the actual tank. I've got a couple of little bits we can touch up on here to give a little bit of a hint of this. Lighter shade on them. Only got to do the faces. Front face of the coils. So it doesn't need to be very much, just a hint. There's a highlight there. Does wonders. So that's the cog teeth done on that part. Should really go and clean that. Should be 2 seconds. I'm going to clean my paint water of all that gold. Now there's still some bits I want to darken down. I want to darken down this cog ring and the front drill. So the trick you'll see have seen me use before. I'm going to take some Lemmy medium. And some rattling grime. Darken this down further. And the rest of this cog drill is done, and I just want to run this around that back seam where we weren't too sure how good or neat we were being, and just running this round the back, tidy that up. And now I want to paint all the teeth in again. Actually, I'm going to put this down and spin it. Put all the teeth in, get some of this recessed shade in there, pull it down. Then we can highlight it up later. I want to make it look dirty. It's going to get typhus corrosion and stuff over it anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much at this stage. So now just coming down the drill. I'll tilt it so you can see it a little easier. But I'm going to have to hold this and drain the tip to make sure that the paint isn't collecting at the end. So just make sure I've got all the way around it, losing the very tip itself. I'll prop that up on a bit of tissue paper. Hopefully I can get that to drain towards the end. Let's get rest like that for a moment. Right, so I've not played around with these. They're water soluble paint, Dirty Down Verdigris and Dirty Down Rust. So I'm going to have a little play with that. So that if I ruin a tank, I ruin a tank. I fancied having some fun, and this is playing as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to take a new brush, take some of this verdigris, and I'm just going to chuck it on the side panel. There you go, into the deepest recesses. You go around behind the cog, you go on the cog, paint around some of the fence. So I've not played with this stuff before, so I'm trying something out. I gave the pot a good shake beforehand, and this either works out or it don't. Wanted a lot of verdigris on the inside of this anyway, so I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing with this stuff. We are Bob Rossing it, so to speak. So I consider that side chucked in. And pardon me folks, I did have breakfast this morning and I have had lunch. We'll see how that develops. I'm just going to run some on the inside of these. hint of that colour. I think it's supposed to activate with oxygen or water, so we'll have to have a little play with it in a sec. See what happens if I get some of it wet. I don't want any more of that on there, so I've used the verdigris for the moment, unless I want to put it on those track runners, but I don't think I will. Just want to see what happens. I know this stuff isn't water soluble, so let's see what happens if I get some of this wet. Change it, go with a bigger brush when we get soaking. No idea if this was what we're supposed to do with this stuff or not. We are playing, as we said earlier. So just chuck some water on these, see what happens, see if it does anything. If there's any kind of activation that we get of it, I don't know what I'm doing with them, to be honest. I'm just waiting to see if it does actually do anything. And that's supposed to be that one. I'm going to leave that bit to dry. Sorry for the message, folks. So I'm going to leave that to dry. We are more or less at the stage where I'm going to do the final assembly of the body, put some of the glue on the track elements and start the assembly of those bits. So one side on, don't need to do any more on the inside as far as I'm concerned. That side. That's the two track sides on. We'll assemble the rails, so this end is the higher end, so I'll try to make sure I get it back together the right way around. And again, at the moment I don't want to glue the rails as such, like that. I want to glue this piece on here so that that's in the right place. I know when it will be in place because I'll hear them click. That might have just been it. If not, they're pretty close. No, just busted that side. Need to have a little manipulation. Model chiropractor. How busted is that side? It didn't give way as such. Just got a bit of moisture on the table from where we've added. I'll put that underneath it to try and drain out some of that moisture from the verdigris that we try to put in there. We'll see if that develops into anything. This is more or less dry now. We'll put that in place. I'm just going to dab it off where it's got a bit of moisture still. In doing this, I'm adding, again, this is not something I'd normally do, but if actually dabbing it and taking some paint off of it, it looks more scratched because it's not as dark on those bits. So this is one of the things I wanted to do towards the end, is just take a sponge tissue or sponge or tissue, wipe off any of the excess. I want it to look dirty as it is, so this isn't a problem. I'll just bring some of the hard edges back in a bit. So we'll just let that cure off. You can see how the enamel pigments have dried on the body, and we're going to take advantage of that in the next video. But that is where the mole is at the moment.